Hi everyone, thank you for joining. My name is Clint. I am a social media specialist and career coach here with Indeed. So we are here today to share the most up-to-date job search information and resources that we can provide. We want this to be as helpful and relevant as possible for you. So please comment below on two things. What do you want to know about looking for a job? And are there any specific topics you want information about? Our moderators are in the chat ready to answer your questions. And while you're doing that, let me tell you about what we're going to be covering today. First, I'll discuss some recent changes to our website that may make it easier for you to find a job. Then I'll tell you about some employers who are urgently hiring right now. And I'll remind you how to find and apply to jobs on Indeed. Next, I'll provide an economic update before sharing some information on how and when to follow up. Finally, we'll wrap up with some of your questions and success stories from the past week. Now, a quick disclaimer before we get started. The information in this video is for informational purposes only. Indeed is not a career or legal advisor. And just FYI, you can come back to this video on Facebook if you want to listen to certain parts again, or you can check out our YouTube channel in the coming days, which we will link below. And you can watch it there. Great, so let's get started by recapping some Indeed updates. First, we've made a few changes to our website to make finding a job during COVID-19 faster and easier. Now, employers who post a job on Indeed can specify whether that job is fully remote or remote temporarily due to COVID-19. If you're looking for a remote job, just put the word remote in the what or where box on the Indeed homepage. And if you're interested in remote careers but you're not sure where to start, check out indeed.com/career/work-from-home. Again, that's indeed.com/career/work-from-home. You can explore remote careers and salary ranges on this page. Alternatively, you may be looking for a job as quickly as possible. Here are some features that can help you. First, Indeed has an urgently hiring tag. If an employer is looking to bring on new hires right away, they can add the urgently hiring icon to their job postings. If you want to find these jobs, keep an eye out for a red clock near the top of a job posting with the words urgently hiring next to it. Second, you can now signal to employers that you are ready to work immediately in any position. If you'd like to do this, go to your Indeed resume by hitting the person icon in the top right corner of the page and selecting resume. You will see the option to toggle #ready to work. This allows employers to easily find and contact you about job opportunities when they are looking for someone to start right away. If you're looking for a job in a different location, we'll be providing updates about virtual hiring events in the near future, so keep following and tuning in for more details. Okay, so a couple more questions for you to tell us about in the comments. First, what do you think about these features? Also, what else could Indeed do to make finding a job easier? And finally, what is your biggest challenge in looking for and applying to jobs online? Okay, let's talk about urgently hiring employers. First, I want to make sure you know about our Indeed Career Guide page that lists the companies that are urgently hiring. It gets updated weekly. Now, we'll link it below. Here are a couple of major national employers that recently posted jobs on Indeed. First, we have Staples, who is urgently hiring for 4,000 roles in Massachusetts, California, Illinois, New York, Texas, among others. Example positions include manager, sales associate, and more. Their apply to hire process takes under 1 week, which means that from the time you apply, it will take less than a week to begin working if it's a fit. They're also holding virtual and same-day interviews. Next up, we have Encompass Health, who is urgently hiring for 4,900 roles in Alabama, Texas, Florida, Ohio, and more. Example positions there include registered nurse, licensed practical nurse, along with other roles. And finally, we have Allstate Insurance, who is urgently hiring and holding virtual interviews for 1,100 roles in New York, Florida, Texas, California, and other states. Example positions there include insurance sales representative and customer service representative. Now, for the full list, check out the link below in the comments section. What do you think about these employer updates? Are they useful? Also, is there any other information you'd like to know about employers right now? Okay, now we'll move into the topic of job searching. If you decide you want to apply to a job on Indeed, here's a quick refresher on how. To start searching and applying to jobs, you can create or update your free Indeed profile. That will make it easier to apply for jobs quickly once you find roles that interest you. Next, you can browse jobs by location in the search bar. Once you've identified a potential employer, click the Apply button and follow the instructions from there. And here are a few tips. Make sure to tailor your application to the specific jobs you're applying for. Take a really close look at the job description. You want to research the company, which you can go to their website, Indeed company pages, or recent articles in the news. You might even want to talk to others who work there. And you want to use that information to customize your application and think about how to best position yourself for the job. Now, one more thing before we move on. While you're searching for a job online, it's important to stay alert. So look out for anyone who asks you to wire money, anyone who asks you to provide passwords of any kind, or anyone who wants to send you a check via email. These are likely scams, and you should report them. We want to know about these posts so that we can remove them from the site and continue protecting people like you. We rely on people like you to flag suspicious job postings. If you see something that seems off, we would greatly appreciate if you would click on the suspicious job posting, then scroll to the bottom of the job post, select the Report Job button, and fill out the Report This Job form. These reports help us remove spam, fraud, and low-quality postings and make Indeed a safer place for everyone. Now let's move on and talk about the economy, COVID-19, and the current state of the job market. At Indeed, we have a team of economists that provide insights into what's happening in the job market and economy right now. This week, Indeed economist Daniel Culbertson shares this. The most recent employment report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics contains some good news for last month. The U.S. labor market added 1.8 million jobs, and the unemployment rate reduced to 10.2%. This marks the third consecutive month that these labor market indicators have trended in the right direction. However, there is still a ways to go, as the U.S. labor market has only recovered 42% of jobs lost during the COVID-19 crisis. So here's what I take from this. It perhaps goes without saying, but depending on the status of COVID-19 in your area and industry, the availability of jobs varies greatly, and the labor market is definitely still feeling the impacts of the pandemic. That being said, overall, we're seeing improvement, which is encouraging. If you're interested in learning more about what Daniel Culbertson has to say or what's happening right now in the US and global job markets, a great resource is www.hiringlab.org. That's hiringlab.org. This is run by Indeed's team of economists. So that brings us to our next topic. Now that more states are opening up businesses, we've received a lot of questions recently about how and when to follow up with employers during a job search. So here's our tip of the week. A clear and concise follow-up email can reinforce you as a qualified candidate when sent at the appropriate time. There are many points in the job application process where you can anticipate waiting for a response from an employer. After you submitted your application and after an interview are a couple of the most common waiting periods. While employers may take some time to respond if there are lots of applications to process, it's usually appropriate to send a follow-up email if you haven't heard back after a few days. Let's discuss how to write a follow-up email and how you know the time is right to send it. So first, what is a follow-up email? A follow-up email is a message you send to gain an employer's attention if you haven't heard back after an interview or job application. The email serves as a reminder to the employer of your interest in the role and why you are a great fit for the job. So why are they important? Well, they act as reminders to a pending application. They give you a second chance to make a good impression. They help you pick up conversations that may have slowed. And follow-up emails resurface you as an interested candidate. Now that we know what a follow-up email is and why they can be useful to you, let's talk about when to follow up. Today we're going to discuss when to follow up after an application, immediately after the interview, and after if you have not heard back from an employer after the interview. So after an application, if you submitted an application and haven't heard anything back from an employer, wait about a week before sending an email asking about the status of your application. Moving on from the application phase to the interview phase, I'd recommend sending a thank you email within 24 to 48 hours after your interview. Use this as an opportunity to thank your interviewer for their time, reiterate your excitement for the role, and recall something from your interview that makes you stand out as a candidate. For example, if you share something in common with the interviewer or if you have specific relevant experience that has prepared you for this role, go ahead and mention that. Now, if you have not heard back after an interview, it's a good practice to send a follow-up email to reiterate your interest in the role no sooner than 1 week, but no later than 2 weeks after the interview occurred. Now, you might find yourself in a situation where you still have not heard back from an employer after sending your thank you email and that first follow-up email. At this point, you might be considering sending an additional email. Well, we recommend only one follow-up email, but if you're going to send a second follow-up email, make sure you do it after waiting at least 1 week after your first message. It's possible that the recruiter or hiring manager will need time to send a response, so it's good etiquette to give them a few days. If you don't hear back at that point, refocus your attention on another opportunity. A successful interview isn't just about getting an offer. It's about determining if the company and opportunity is the right one for you. Your time is valuable, so if it's not a good fit, pivot your attention and devote your time to finding an opportunity that is. Plus, in any situation, you want to wait a period of time after your last action before the next follow-up to give the recipient some time to respond. For more detailed examples of follow-up emails, be sure to check out the Career Guide article, How to Write a Follow-Up Email, linked in the chat. So now that you know when to send a follow-up email, let's talk about how to write an effective message. A follow-up email has 4 components that we'll break down further: subject line, reminder, purpose, and call to action. So first up, write a concise subject line. When writing a follow-up email, your subject line should be straight to the point and clear to the recipient. It informs the person you are writing to of the reason you're following up. If inquiring about the status of your application or interview, consider including your name and the position you applied for. An example might be regarding Jane Smith's application for Human Resources Manager position. Next, provide context to remind the interviewer of who you are by including information like the position title, the date of your application, interview, or last correspondence, and one piece of information that makes you stand out as a qualified candidate. And aim to keep it brief. This makes it easy for the reader to locate your application materials or remember what your previous conversation was about. Next, reiterate your purpose for writing, like mentioning your interest in interviewing for the role or moving on to the next phase of the interview process. And finally, include a call to action. At the end of your follow-up email, include a call to action that indicates your expected response. A good way to make the interviewer feel more comfortable is to indicate that you know they must be busy and that you appreciate their time. This will help you come across as patient and empathetic. Now, a few quick bonus tips. First, address the email to the name of the person who interviewed you. It's appropriate to use their first name if you are on a first name basis. If not, address them by their last name. Second, make sure your email is concise. Third, close the letter with your name and contact information, including your phone number and your email. And finally, carefully proofread before you hit send. Treat follow-up emails with as much care as you give your other application materials and give it a final edit before you hit send. So in summary, when sending a follow-up email, assess how much time has passed, keep the email short and concise, include a reminder about who you are, which position you interviewed for, and what sets you apart from other applicants, and finally, make a call to action. The purpose of the follow-up is to elicit a response and move you to the next stage of the hiring process. So don't hesitate to express your desire to move forward. All right, now on to this week's questions. First question we got is, I recently got a job that I like after a long job search, but it's a pretty small company and I'm not sure how stable it is. Should I just go ahead and start looking at other options? This is a really difficult question. Every situation is different, and job security is especially important during this time to a lot of job seekers. I would suggest that you consider whether your overall needs are currently being met by your current employer. Since it can be so difficult to predict what will happen to one company or another, it could be beneficial to approach it from that concrete, needs-based perspective. Ultimately, I advise that you assess your individual situation and the jobs you're interested in to see if it makes sense to move forward with a new opportunity. Our next question is this. Now that we are this far into the pandemic, how has the hiring process changed? Should we be preparing for a job search any differently? This is an excellent question. For those searching for a job right now, it's wise to prepare yourself for a different hiring process than you expected. You may be asked to interview virtually, which can have its own unique set of quirks and challenges. If you'd like more information on how to prepare for a video interview, check out our YouTube channel. We've covered that there before. Also, networking is pretty much online only these days. So be sure to check out professional interest groups, reach out to your connections, and build up your online presence. And finally, your hiring and onboarding process may be a bit up in the air or slower than usual. While we're a while into this pandemic, many employers remain in a phase of constant readjustment due to the changing status of COVID in their locales and evolving government regulations. They're figuring this out as they go along, so try to go in with that expectation. Our last question is this. Will it hurt my resume if I take on a temporary position that's different than the field I plan on entering after the crisis is over? Well, great question. If you are able to work during this time, Adding experience to your resume could help improve your resume and give you an advantage in the long run. Showing employers that you were able to adjust to this challenging situation could make your application more competitive. Even if a job is not in your ideal industry, there may be opportunities to develop skills that you can leverage later when applying for future jobs. For example, complex problem solving, remote software use, diffusing conflict, and communication are experiences that could be added to your resume in the future. In short, work experience is always valuable. If you'd like to take a temporary job, go for it. All right, finally, I'd love to wrap up today with some good news. Now, it can be easy to feel like there aren't job opportunities out there, but job seekers and employers are connecting every day. And when job seekers get hired using Indeed, they often choose to share their stories with us. So I'm going to end by sharing a few stories from folks who were recently hired. One Indeed user wrote, "I was a substitute teacher for 5 years and I was laid off due to COVID-19 regulations in my state. I now have a new full-time teaching position with benefits, which means the world to my family." Another person wrote, "Indeed was very instrumental in not only introducing me to my new employer, but also preparing me to have great interviews. I believe this gave me the confidence, even as an older job seeker, to stand out above the competition, even in COVID." And finally, another person shared, "This job means I'll be able to pay for my rent and living expenses, save some money, and be in a better position a year from now. The Indeed resume made it easier since I didn't have to fill out a lengthy application on the employer's website." To each of these folks, congratulations, and thank you for sharing your story with us. If you are ever in need of some inspiration during your job search, check out gotajob.indeed.com. Again, that's gotajob.indeed.com. This page shares up-to-date success stories from Indeed users around the world. And we hope that when you get hired, you will share your own too. All right, well, that's it for today's live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let us know if this content was helpful by commenting below. And if you enjoyed today's session, you can like this page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, if you know of someone who could use this information, consider sharing it. One more thing. This is our last episode of a COVID-19 update for now, but please join us the next time we go live when we'll be moving towards sharing job search tips and career advice. All right, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.